Parenting is hard. It can also be rewarding, but getting through the grind to the good stuff can be a real struggle. And all of us could use some inspiration, encouragement, or just a reminder that we aren't alone on this journey. Sometimes even parents need a timeout.
Hey, welcome to Parents Time Out. My name's Kim Botto. I'm a mom of 5 and a grandma of 7, soon to be 8. And this is the time during the week where we gather to talk to other parents about the joys and challenges of parenting. This week, we're going to talk about how do you parent a kid who is different than you. If you are the parent of a child, there are things about them that are different than you that sometimes cause stress and challenges for us. So tonight, we are really excited to have Kerry Gautraud and Josh Benforado. Hi, guys. To have them with us. They are both parents of different kids because they're married to other people. And gosh, I think between the three of us, we have 12 kids. And Josh and Kerry are parenting kids who are different than them. They have different personalities, different interests, different energy levels and temperaments. They are adoptive parents. And so they are parenting some kids who have the same skin color as them. And they are parenting some kids who do not have the same skin color as them. So we're just going to be talking about all the different ways our kids can be different than us. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
As we wait for people to hop on, I'm going to ask you a question. And that is, in the midst of all this coronavirus and schools, are they meeting, are they not? There's a lot of parents who are stressed. So what are you guys doing to decrease the stress in your life?
Kerry, I will let you go first.
Thanks. I think for me, I have been trying to get up earlier than the kids, which has been a goal the whole time I've been a parent, but I've actually started doing it consistently, trying to do some sort of physical exercise and then working outside in my garden. And I worked really hard when everything started in March and April. And now I've got tons of awesome flowers, and I delivered multiple bouquets of flowers to friends today. So it's just a really positive reminder that life is still happening and things are growing.
Yeah. And Kerry, you've actually been teaching your kids how to put flowers together to make a bouquet. And so, yeah.
Yep.
Well
they
done.
love it.
What about you, Josh? And I just want to point out, Josh is actually in his furnace room, but he has decided to brighten up his life down in the furnace room with some Christmas lights. So we're loving that. I would love to know what other people are doing. If those who are watching, if you've got ideas to brighten up your spaces, let us know. But Josh, how do you decrease stress?
Yeah, mine is putting Christmas decorations in all of my surroundings because that helps all the time. Honestly, right now I'm in the middle of a 10-day vacation. So tonight is the first time I opened up my computer in 5 days. And I'm experimenting with no phone. So Friday night when I went to bed, I powered down my phone and have not turned it on since. And so I can't tell. It might just be that I'm on vacation, but I think a huge part of it is just not being engaged with screens and email and all that sort of stuff. And it's allowing me to be more present with my kids and just learn to sit and be. And yeah, it's been super helpful in de-stressing.
That's right. Yeah. It is. We were talking earlier, when you spend more time with your kids, when you have patience and margin, you begin to realize that you really do like your kids quite a bit. They're fun. They're fun little humans to be around. As we get started, why don't you tell those who are watching a little bit more about each of your families and yourself?
All right, I'll go first again. So my husband Joel and I have 4 kiddos. Our oldest is a biological child, and she is 11. And then our next kiddo we adopted internationally from Ethiopia. She is going to be 10 in like a week and a half. And then I'm forgetting. That's awful. Okay. And then I have another little girl. What's wrong? She is 5, and she was adopted from Ohio, where we live. And then my 4-year-old, the youngest, is a boy, and we adopted him from Philadelphia. So we've got a little bit of a combination of everything. And since we are talking about kids that look different than us and different races, obviously my daughter from Ethiopia is African American, she's brown skinned, and then my daughter from Ohio is biracial, African American and Caucasian, and then my son is actually Afro-Cuban. He's 100% Cuban, but he has dark brown skin. So we got a little bit of everything. And I didn't
realize that Oscar was part Cuban. So it's good to know. He's
100% Cuban.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that. All I know is he's adorable and he brings joy wherever he goes.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, Josh.
Yeah. So I am married to my beautiful wife, April. We are coming up on 10 years in October. And we found out pretty early on in our marriage that we probably were not ever going to be able to have biological kids. And we had always talked about foster and adoption as things that we wanted to do before we even knew that. And that just kind of sped up the time frame once we kind of grieved that. And so we have a 6-year-old Tony who we adopted through foster care. Jackson is 5, same thing, adopted through foster care. And Sasha's 3, same thing, adopted through foster care. And Tony and Sasha are both Black, and Jackson's white.
Cool. So, and Kerry is a pediatric nurse when she's not being a mom, and Josh is a producer. Wait, that's your title, isn't it? Yeah. He's a producer at Crossroads Mason. He's whatever. Yeah, he's on vacation this week. So if you're watching and you have questions for Josh and Kerry, you can just put them in the comments. But as we get started, okay, this is not a shocker to you. Josh and Kerry, you guys are both white, and you're both parenting children who are not white. So what have you learned? What have you learned from this experience, or how have you changed? How's your parenting changed because of that?
Well, I would say in a lot of ways and in probably every way. And I do think for the better. I think as adoptive parents, we get to learn a lot of really awesome parenting tools that I wouldn't have known otherwise, but is helpful for all children, no matter where they come from. And so we focused a lot more on connection and attaching properly and being intentional and all that kind of good stuff, which we found super fruitful and beneficial. And then being a transracial family, I think probably the biggest thing I learned is that I need to always be a learner. I have said many times to my kids and friends, I'm never going to be Black. And so I always have to be willing to humble myself and learn. And so my daughter who's Black has been in our family for, 8 years. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of learning more about what it means to parent outside of my race and the implications that come with that. So there's a lot within that.
Yeah. And you've I know you have people who live with you, and you've had several people who live with you who look more like your daughters than look like you. And is that intentional?
Yeah, I would say so. So, one of our good friends, Stella, lived with us for 2 years, and she's African American, and that was a huge positive shift for our whole family, because my husband and I both grew up in mostly white worlds, and you don't really realize that because that's the world you live in.
Right.
And that's the world, we all live in when we're white. So having someone actually live in our house, it's different than just, oh, I have this, acquaintance or this friend at work. And what happened was her friends started to come over a lot more. And you just naturally have a lot of conversations then about race and adoption and all that comes with this. And it was just very healing for all of us. And it's so important for my girls to have those relationships.
Right.
So yeah, not everybody can have somebody live with them on their third floor, but
Right.
I don't know. A lot of people have an empty bedroom. So, and there's a lot of young people in their 20s that need a place to live. And it's been super positive for us. That's a whole nother weird thing, but.
Right.
But yeah,
we could do a whole thing on inviting others to live in your home.
Yeah. Invite people over for dinner that look like your kids, or whether you have kids of color or not. Invite them actually over for dinner. Have a invested give and take friendship and relationship. And I have said to people before, like, hey, I need more people of color in my life because it's important for me and my kids, my family. And that's kind of awkward, but I have just said, like, I would love for you to be more a part of our family and come over to our house more for meals and things like that. And most people don't think it's that weird, actually.
No, and that's a good thing to do, even if it's not just about having people with the same skin color as your kids, but if you have a kid who's super interested in something that you're not interested in, then connect them with another adult who is. So Josh, so you're also parenting kids who are different race than you. What have you learned, or what's changed about your parenting strategies because of that?
Yeah, I think, the two things that come to mind, the first is I am not a person who likes to feel uncomfortable things or have hard discussions. That has not been my MO in the past. And the truth is, we're forced to, now that we parent kids who look different than us. Mm-hmm. And so it's really had to teach April and I how to lean into really hard conversations and things that, honestly, if I was just raising white kids, would I even intentionally think about how I'm going to talk about race to my kids? I don't even know if I would have, but now I have to. Like, I don't have the luxury of not being intentional around a really, really difficult conversation for any of us to have. So that's one thing. And then the other big thing for me, empathy also has not been, I did not come into my marriage with that being a skill of mine. You can ask my wife. And when you're faced with kids who look completely different than you, act completely different than you, and you know it, like Kerry said, like, you just know, like, I'm never going to experience the world like they are going to experience the world fully. It forces you to begin to try to have empathy. And so again, that not being a strong suit of mine has been something I've had to develop kind of over the last 6 years since we first brought Tony in our home.
And I think you're a pretty empathetic dude, Josh.
Thank you, Kim. If you could just let my wife know that.
I'll text April later.
Please do. That would be great.
I'll let her know. Actually, if she doesn't think you are, then it doesn't make any difference what I think, because she's your. That's right. Okay, here's a question from Jason. Any ideas for parenting when your kids recharge differently than you, like introvert versus extrovert?
I have all extroverts, and I am an extrovert, so I got really, really lucky. April hates it, though. Like, she is so upset that we don't have any kids that recharge like she does. We don't have any kids who don't want to talk to everybody in the restaurant or at the hotel that we were just at 2 nights ago. Like, they're like talking to so I don't know if I have a lot of great advice on that one, because all of my kids recharge like I do. What about you, Kerry?
Yeah, I'm mostly an extrovert, but I do need my introvert time still. And I definitely have both in my house. And so I think in general, just being able to ask a lot of questions and being a good detective, like my oldest, I think, is the one who probably needs the most time to herself, and maybe because she's the oldest, and carries responsibilities that the others don't. So I'll just kind of check in like, hey, do you need to just spend some time up in your room? But we actually just have scheduled into our day quiet time every afternoon, like 2 to 3. So I try to protect that for her and not let the other kids, they tend to not want to be alone. So I try to, I don't know, I basically make them have quiet time, whether they like it or not, even though they're extroverts. But then like today, one of my kids who's an extrovert was like, can I please run this errand with you? I just have to get out of the house. And I was like, I get that, you know, like I feel like kids are being quarantined more than even the adults because we got to go do stuff still. And we just kind of keep leaving them at home. So I really didn't want to take her with me because I wanted to be by myself. But I let her ride around in the car and do errands and stuff. And I think I could tell that that was like a breath of fresh air.
Because sometimes as parents, we have to put the needs of our kids above our own needs. Not all the time. We still need to get our needs met, but sometimes we do have to do that. So what about, besides just recharging, parenting a kid who is different than you? Think of a way that one of your kids is different. So Josh, it's not going to be introvert versus extrovert because you're all extroverts, but think about a way that they're different. And what's been the most challenging difference and how have you parented through that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's not as much personality differences right now, but as I think about the biggest difference I see between my kids and I think about their story, like the fact that they came into our family through adoption. Like that's something that I'm never going to be able to experience or understand fully. And so I know for me, like I've had this huge fear that I'm not going to be able to relate to them, to understand fully what they're going through. And so that has led me to be, again, way more intentional about helping our kids understand their identity as Benforados. That like, hey, this is who Benforados are. You're one of us. Like this is our family. And so going out of my way to instill identity in them, because I feel like that might be an outage when they grow up and start asking some more questions about things, has been a huge challenge. And honestly, I think every kid, adopted or not adopted, is probably going to go through times in their life where they're wondering, man, do I really belong in this family? Like, what am I doing here? And so I think even if you don't have adopted kids, finding ways to instill, man, what it is that makes you a part of our family, why it is that you are so core to who we are as a unit is really, really important.
Yeah, that's very important. And I think that's where unique family traditions, ways that you celebrate the holidays that are different than other people. It can seem silly, but it's not. Mm-hmm. That's how, we do some pretty goofy things around holidays, first day of school, stuff like that. But that helps our kids identify as a Botto, being part of the Tick Botto team. What about you, Kerry?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind for me is just because my kids, kind of like he was saying, when you've been through significant early childhood trauma, which every child who's been adopted has on some level, some, more than others, some of my kids just have a lot of emotions, a lot of the time. And they also, some of them are just, it's very hard for them to be content. So they tend to err on the side of discontentment and negativity. And I think, I want everything to be okay. I want everybody to be happy. I want everything to be positive. So I've had to really learn to be okay with everything not being okay. And I've had to really learn to listen to feelings and then even stop to identify my own feelings and express them to my kids. And I think that's just something a lot of us didn't really grow up practicing. But when we have kids who are different than us, and this could be any typical family too, if maybe they just think differently than you, or they're a different number on the Enneagram, or they have, mental health issues, it's easy to just want to dismiss and blow off stuff that seems silly or doesn't make any sense to me. But just going back to listening and being empathetic, reflecting, oh, it sounds like you feel sad, you feel disappointed. Can you tell me more about that? And I'm still struggling in my head sometimes. I'm like, what are you talking about? But trying to have a good understanding face and even head nods and just sitting there and being there, because especially with 3 girls, there's just a lot of drama. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to be emotionally available that much, but I'm the parent 100% of the time. So I gotta buck up and be mature enough to listen and empathize.
Right. And I think you're talking too about, like, we have to be introspective and figure out how we're wired and realize that is a wiring. That's not just the way everybody's wired. Right. I'm an external processor. So, let's talk about everything, and let's talk even when our thoughts aren't fully formed. And it wasn't until my kids were in their teenage years that I realized I have a son who's an internal processor. So I was constantly forcing him to say stuff when he wasn't ready. And then sometimes he would say things that would be offensive to me. And once I realized that, sometimes what I just do is say, hey, Wes, I want to talk about this. Can we talk about it later? And that would give him time to think about it, and we would have much more thoughtful conversations. So I think as parents, it's important to realize the unique way that we're wired too, that we might be trying to force upon our kids. So here's a question where we, as adoptive parents, we love this question. What's your biggest blessing, having said yes to the adventure of adoption? Thanks, Jennifer.
I'll take it first. I think, I don't know, just like any other family, I can't imagine my family without any of my kids. And it's sad, and there's a lot of tragedy within adoption that they had to be adopted in the first place, but that's our family. Like, they're my kids. And just like anybody else who is invested in their kids, like, I will do anything for them. And they each have brought such a unique flavor to our family, and I love how different they are. It's super challenging to parent 4 totally different kids that are probably way more drastically different than a typical family. But I feel like I have been forced to grow and mature beyond what I ever would have otherwise. And so it's hard to sum that up, but it's just like anything that's challenging and hard is worth it. And there's so many benefits at the same time.
Yes. What about you, Josh? Thanks,
Yeah,
Kerry.
I think the biggest blessing has been this constant, like, I have a daily reminder that God's plans are way better than my plans. Because when I go back to when we were struggling with all the infertility stuff and asking why, like, we would be awesome parents. Like, why would you let this happen this way? And I think about the way that I wanted my life to play out. And then I look at all of our kids, and like Kerry said, like, I cannot fathom a better family than the family that we have. And so it really is just this constant reminder that even when things aren't going the way that I want them to, or that I think the way I think they should, that God always has a better plan than I do. And I think secondary thing, kind of going back to the identity thing that I'm worried about instilling in my kids from the get-go, it's actually been a blessing on that side of things, because I constantly get to tell my kids in their story, like, we chose you. God very specifically lined you up for our family. And when we got that call, we said, yes, we want you. And so even though I think there's going to be struggle around some of those questions that they have growing up, to be able to always look at them and say, no, we chose you, and that's a part of your story, I think it's going to be a huge blessing.
And I want to, Jennifer, I love talking about adoption. So our two youngest, we adopted our youngest daughter when she was 10, and then our other daughter when she was 15. And I will say that adoption is the most tangible picture of the gospel that you can get here on earth. And there are so many times where I would be frustrated with our youngest two as we were trying to bring them into our family, and they were kind of pushing against it. And I was like, oh, I do that to God all the time. Like, he's trying to bring me into his family, and he has good things for me, but because things aren't comfortable or exactly like I want at the moment, it just, it makes me mad, and I rebel against it. So adoption has strengthened my relationship with the Lord and helped me to better understand what he thinks about me. And the verse in James that I love, where it says to care for the widows and the orphans, we all know that. But then the second part is because it keeps us from being polluted from the world. So we go in there thinking that we're going to rescue these kids. And in turn, we end up getting rescued from things that we had no idea that we needed to be rescued from. And it's just, yes, if anyone would like to talk about adoption, all three of us would be more than happy. We'll put our emails in the comments, because we would love to talk to you about adoption. But you guys, our time is it's close to being up. So I would love to know any final thoughts for our viewers?
I'll take this one first, Kerry, because you've taken like every question first. I think the biggest thing that I would say, and we hit on it a little bit about finding adults that you can put in your kid's life who have similar interests or characteristics. But you yourself putting yourself in relationship with people who are different than you. You know, I think about how under-equipped I have felt raising Black children in the midst of all the racial injustice that we're experiencing in our country. And when do I talk to my kids about it? How do I talk to my kids about it? What do I say? Like, how do I even approach it? And it's only when I've been able to go grab lunch with somebody who doesn't look like me and say, hey, help me understand how were you parented through this? How do you work with your kids through some of these conversations, that I felt even a little bit more comfortable having some of those really difficult conversations I had no idea how to approach. And so I would say maybe it's not race, but maybe you do know there are differences between you and your kids. If you don't know what they are, you need to figure them out. And then you need to get around other people who are like your kids, so you can begin to have some more empathy for their experience in life.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Kerry?
Thank you, Josh. I think what I've mainly been thinking of is how my kids have taught me that every single person is a unique creation created by God in his image. And we all, when we're believers, we say that. But to actually really act like that means that I have to respect who they are and not just push them to be like me, because it's comfortable to make your kids little mini robots of yourself. And it's comfortable to surround yourself with people just like you. But that's not the kingdom. That's not the kingdom of God. That's not what heaven's going to look like. So my kids have taught me that I can't do that to them, that I have to respect their personhood and really just view them as whole people and invest in them. Don't talk down to them. Don't dismiss their feelings. Like I was saying before, there was a message translation that caught me years ago. It's the Matthew 5:48. He says, in a word, what I'm saying is grow up. Your kingdom subjects, now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously and graciously towards others the way God lives towards you. And that just broke me, because I know that God is so generous and gracious to me. Like you were saying, Kim, he gives me a million redos and try agains, and I'm the adult in this equation.
Yes.
And I just act so immature and foul and threaten them with stupid stuff and whatever. And they are so forgiving and generous towards me. And so I just think they've taught me to grow up and respect all people. And now I have this community and friends, that people who look nothing like me, people with different disabilities, whether they be physical or learning disabilities. 2 of my kids have special needs, and we just embrace people for who they are, and then they get to live out, who God designed them to be. When you really, like you were saying, Josh, when you speak into them and you accept them for who they are, and give them truth and their identity. So no matter what the kids look like, you can do it.
That's right. That's really helpful. So Josh, you're encouraging us to get our kids with people who are different than us, and not just skin color. It might be their interests, the way they process information, whether they're good at math or not. And then Kerry, I love what you said as far as we don't want just little mini me's. We want to figure out who God created them to be, and help them be the fullness of who they are, which may be way different than us, which could be uncomfortable. But in the end, it's super exciting, and it's way more adventurous, and it's way better for them, that they can be fully them. So I really appreciate Josh and Kerry. I love spending time with you guys anyway. So thank you. And Josh, on your vacation, thanks for going down to your furnace room to talk to us.
Honestly, I hadn't seen the lights in a while, so it cheered me up anyway. So thanks for giving me a reason.
I told them I have a Christmas tree in my entryway. I might bring that in here to brighten my day. But I want to thank April and Joel too, because I know they're manning bedtime while you guys are on here. So Kerry and Josh, thank you so much. And for those who are watching, next week, we're going to have Justin and Sarah Mosteller. Justin is a worship leader at Crossroads Oakley. And if you ever watch worship, we have worship daily on Crossroads Facebook channels. He often is on there with his wife, Sarah, and their kids. It is amazing to watch their family worship together. And while they're worshiping together, they're spilling drinks, and there's kids going in and out of the frame. And so he's just going to talk to us on how do we raise up kids who worship God. So we hope to see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Josh and Kerry, have a great night. Good night, everybody.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Bye.